Hi everyone, and thank you all for joining me for Supervision Sundays. Let me just say how grateful I am that you all take the time to watch these vlogs and like, share, comment. I appreciate you all so much. I'm always so excited to provide information to you all. So if you haven't already, please check out the Facebook page. It is facebook.com/leadclinically. Also, please share with your friends, repost. That is how I get feedback, and it allows me to kind of see what my audience is and try to cater to the things that you all like. Also, please follow the Instagram page if you are not already. We're on Instagram and Twitter. It is Lead Clinically on Facebook and Twitter. Super simple. I try to keep it super simple on any platform that you're on. If you just look up Lead Clinically. A little bit about me. I'm Dr. Brittany. I have a passion for providing clinical supervision and training. Not only have I had about 13 years in the field of clinical social work, I have background in teaching and working in community mental health. And so I really just enjoy the social work profession. Very active in NASW in the Florida chapter. And I'm active in the community. So I think that what that allows me to do is provide to you all my lived experience as a social worker. And so I know that our experiences will be different, and I welcome that. So if you have any questions or you have anything that you think is important for me to know, any resources, I will provide those things to you all, but don't be afraid to reach out to me and provide resources or ask me questions. So let's jump right in. Today we're talking about telehealth. And so when I thought about this topic, I said, you know what? Telehealth is super trending right now. It is something that a lot of millennials and new clinicians are very interested in. There are a lot of platforms that are providing work-related options for telehealth. So that's providing therapy via the phone, the internet, Zoom, Skype. And it also provides an option for individuals who are considering doing telehealth in their private practice. And so with that comes a lot of questions, right? Some of the questions really look at, okay, well, what is telehealth, and can I provide it as a non-licensed individual, as a licensed individual? Some of the questions center around, if I'm out of state, can I do telehealth in another state? Can I practice telehealth here in Florida? As a reminder, I'm a licensed clinician here in Florida. A lot of the information that I provide to you all, especially as it relates to the Florida statutes, is for Florida. And it's just what I read. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but I do refer to the Florida statutes, the Chapter 491, which governs the clinical social work practice, the licensed and marriage family therapists, and the licensed mental health counselors. They govern, we have a board, they govern our profession, they make the rules as it relates to what we do. And so when you think about telehealth, you're defining it. The Florida Department of Health actually has a definition for telehealth, which includes telemedicine. So that is for individuals that are able to prescribe, but also for individuals who provide services via any electronic platform, with the exception of emails, telephone calls. Those things are not considered telehealth services. So any service such as assessing in order to diagnose an individual, or individual therapy services. So when you think about telehealth, I just want to give you all a couple of tips on what that looks like for us and for individuals interested in practicing. So number one, Florida already allows licensed professionals to provide telehealth services without having to do any additional training, any additional registrations or certifications for your license. You're not required to do anything additional. So if you're already licensed in the state of Florida and you're considering doing telehealth here in the state of Florida, you don't have to do anything additional. Now, just because it's not required, I always recommend that you get some type of training on how to build rapport with clients in diagnosing and assessing, because the platform using video conference is very different. Just as when you talk to someone over the phone or via text message, that can be different in our personal relationships, and it's certainly different for us when we are providing therapy via Skype or Zoom, whatever platform you may be interested in using. Now, if you're a clinician and you're living out of state, Florida does require that you register to provide telehealth services in the state of Florida. And so what that looks like is you can go to the Florida Board's website. I'll provide that information to you all. But you go to their website and you basically apply. There's no fee, but what you're doing is you are applying to let the state of Florida know, number one, that you're licensed already in another state. It requires that you maintain an active license with no disciplinary action. It also requires that you don't have any issues as you continue to provide those services. You cannot have a practice office in Florida. So again, if you are in another state and you're licensed and you register to provide telehealth services in the state of Florida, it does require you do not have a practice office, because it's a little different if you do have a practice office here in Florida. Then that would say that you need to now have a Florida license to be practicing in Florida, if that makes sense. The registration process for out-of-state clinicians also requires that you maintain liability insurance, and so those things are super important as you move forward to doing telehealth if you're wanting to provide those services to individuals living in Florida. So the next thing is record keeping, and so this is just a tip. Most best practice standards that you'll read, NASW, the state of Florida, actually in their statute does require that you keep records the same way you would as if you were seeing someone in person. So just because you're providing telehealth services does not alleviate that other task of making sure you document sessions, document what's happening, document the treatment that you're doing, document the diagnoses. Those things are still required. And again, that's best practices. That's to protect you and to protect the client, and it's a way for us to ensure quality services to the clients. And so for those of you all who are thinking, hey, maybe this is another simpler option, you do need to do similar record keeping. It also requires that you do best practices, informed consent. Okay, so what does that look like, right? If you're using Zoom, you want to make sure that your Zoom platform is HIPAA compliant. So the free version of Zoom is not HIPAA compliant. So you do have to pay for a different version of Zoom in order to get that service and that added layer of protection. But also, if you are a clinician and you are choosing to record any of the sessions that you do with your client, you want to make sure that that is a part of the informed consent. You need to make sure that you are providing informed consent to your clients, whether you see them in person or via Zoom or Skype or whatever platform you're using. And that just, again, assures quality and ensures that your client knows what to do in case of an emergency, and your client's aware of the limits of confidentiality, meaning that, hey, if you tell me that you're going to hurt yourself, someone else, a vulnerable adult, those are the limits of my confidentiality. I will have to possibly contact law enforcement, duty to warn, and those type of things. Another question that comes up often when it comes to telehealth is, what about reimbursement, right? So how am I going to get paid for the services that I am providing? It really depends on the company that you work with. So of course, if you're working for a private agency, you all are working that out on your own. But if you're in private practice, Florida is one of those states that does not require insurance companies to reimburse clinicians for therapeutic services via telehealth at the same rate that they would if they were seeing the person in office. And so that's important, right? Because if you're charging a certain rate or receiving a certain rate for in-person services through an insurance company, and you see that same client via telehealth, they are not required, they being the insurance company, are not required to reimburse you that same amount. Now, what Florida has done within the statute is they now do require that if you're going to provide telehealth services, that you have a contract with an agreed upon rate with that insurance company. And so that's that protection for you all as clinicians when you're saying, hey, I want to do these services. Basically what they're saying is you have to get with that particular insurance company, and prior to providing those services, make sure you have a contract that outlines what you're going to do and what the agreed upon rate is. And that does require a bit of work, because it is not easy to get on insurance panels, and it can sometimes be a challenge just to navigate how to do that. Now, I will say that NASW in 2003 did publish some best practices and cultural considerations that included the use of telehealth, and they highly, highly recommend, of course, the informed consent, as I've already said, the limits of confidentiality, and making sure that your client is aware of the services that you're able to provide. They also make reference to providing information on the limits and risks of using telehealth, right? So if you've really never met this individual, there are some risks associated with it, right? And then also letting the client know, hey, if you're using this service, I really would like you to make sure you're connected to someone in the area that you live in. So let's just say you're seeing someone a couple cities over. You want to make sure that they have contact information for the emergency receiving agency in case a big wreck needed to occur, in case they're having a medication emergency and they need to get in to see someone. You're not as accessible, and that is the risk that they run in seeing someone via telehealth. And so those are just my tips on, what I've learned about providing telehealth services. Super, super important, a super trending topic. So thank you all for your time. Let's keep the conversation going. I'm interested in knowing if you've ever provided telehealth services, if you're even interested in telehealth services, what your concerns might be, anything that you have found super helpful to you in providing telehealth services. Please share that information. Again, super helpful to all of us. And again, hashtag Supervision Sundays. Please like, follow, share, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Please share the information.